Hello everyone, we are back. It is the Rob and Mo show, the smoothest cats doing football chat. Now, I was thinking about that on the taxi on the way here.
Smoothest cats doing football, yeah.
Well, I almost went with smartest cats, but, you know, I'm not sure that's true. I almost went with coolest cats, but, I mean, I think that's kind of obvious, really. But smoothest, we need to be smooth on a day like today, because you know what? Everybody needs a little bit of calm, a little bit of measuredness, because
we're in a dark place, aren't we, Mark?
For the second Liverpool game in a row, it did not go our way. Liverpool lost away in Galatasaray last night, and that is going to make up the bulk of the show, picking the bones out of that, but not specifically going through bit by bit, but just talking about some of the wider concepts around it. And here's a first wide concept for you. So, looking at the two games, Palace and Galatasaray, there's something I noticed.
What?
Against Palace, we started awfully and then started to get better.
Got a lot better.
A lot better. Against Galatasaray, we started okay and then progressively got worse.
So now, into a pile of shit.
Which one of those two scenarios feels worse or worries you more? Because I do think that makes a difference.
I was gutted by Palace. It's the bigger game. It's 3 league points lost. But I felt we'd done enough to restore significant pride that second half. The first half was a disaster show. And people come up with ridiculous numbers. Palace could have been 4, 5, maybe even 6-0 up. And you go, no, I think if they'd gone 2-0 up, we might have started playing earlier.
You think?
You think. But it took to surviving to half-time just a goal down for us to come out. And I thought we were actually, in isolation, it was a pretty decent half of football from Liverpool against a good team on their own ground. And we create, people forget because they're disappointed in the result, we create some really good chances.
Yes.
Florian Wirtz really should score, gets into a great position. Isak dribbles past 2, might have gone down, gets a good shot away. Chiesa does score, Chiesa gets a good shot away. There's a peppering of their goal.
It felt like it was coming.
It did feel like it was coming, and lo and behold, it did.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there was a sting in the tail to that. But even when I dusted myself down, picked myself up off the floor after that blow, I was able to go, look, we got a goal. We might have scored more goals. Yes, there were some issues with us in the first half, but this doesn't feel like a disaster.
No.
In terms of what it augurs for the immediate future. But yesterday we looked ragged. You know, as the game progressed, we'd also looked stripped of confidence. We looked like our confidence was ebbing away. It looked like this is a real start again kind of moment. You sort of could visualise how this could descend into the old-fashioned full-blown crisis. I hope it's not going to do that. I know you want to talk about not overreacting, but it was a hard one to take the way we finished that game.
It was harder to find any positives, I think it's fair to say. And again, maybe that's just the psychology of watching football, where the good bits at the beginning, and by the time you've had so much of the bad bit, you forget about the good bit. But there were good bits. I did think that in the beginning of the game, even in the immediate aftermath of the goal we conceded, I thought you could see what the plan was. We were able to draw them onto us and then play around them very well and get into good positions. But as the game progressed, that happened less and less. And it felt like we were playing it on their terms. We were allowing them to be more physical with us and kind of really disrupt what we wanted to do. And then they became really bitty. You mentioned to me before we started rolling about the time of the ball in play. I've not looked at the stats, but I imagine it's hardly any. And Galatasaray, they had something to hold on to. So what they're going to do, they're going to make it bitty. They're going to hit the deck every time they can. They knew that they had a particularly fussy referee who would allow them to get away with those things. And
I thought he was terrible. Yeah. I mean, that's actually why you feel terrible at the end of a game like that, because you haven't watched a game of football. I think maybe in the cool idea, if I can bring myself to watch it back, we'll go, do you know what, the referee was the referee, and he made that the game that it was, and there's nothing we could have done about it.
I've seen him do that before, to be honest.
Oh, really? That particular guy?
Yeah.
Let's name names.
Clement Turpin. To be honest, when I saw it was him, I was a bit like, oh, this could go either way. Because it's worked in our favour before. He's given us penalties where I wasn't sure about them. They were like 40, 60 penalties, you call them. He does like a pen. I think that was his 9th in 11 games. So
it was a soft,
and it was nearly 10.
It was soft, that penalty, wasn't it?
It was, and again, this feeds into what I was saying before. The Galatasaray player, as I think Slot said, he turned it from a 20% penalty to a 100% penalty, which is a killer line, by the way, Arnie. And from there, they were able to kind of do what they want. But Liverpool should have already been in front before that incident happened. You know that Hugo had the good chance. And there were still a few more other little bits throughout the game. But then, as I say, the further we got into the second half, the more it felt like it was going to be one of them. And then, as you said earlier, the injuries happened. Now, let's talk about Alisson first, because it's weird. I remember saying after the last, before the Palace game, it was like, he had a great game at Palace last time, and then he got injured. And then he had a great game at Palace this time. And I thought, oh, whew, he's escaped the injury. But then he didn't. And there's a part of me that's frustrated by it because it was kind of a wayward pass. In fact, wayward passes probably caused both of the injuries that came, because obviously the wayward pass from Konate to Gravenberch started the attack, and then he's having to sprint back to get into position. And apparently it's that sprint back that's done his injury.
Who to Alisson? Yeah.
Yeah. But we also have to kind of have this annual seemingly conversation around he does get injured a lot.
Do we have any insights to what the injury is? Is it a hammy? Is it a knee?
Not necessarily. I've not seen any specifics, but I've seen someone say it was basically during the running back rather than actual making of the save that caused the injury.
That's worrying. And the managers rush to rule him out for Chelsea is worrying. I mean, I think when the news broke, 15 so months ago, that Liverpool were spending 22 million on a backup goalie, Mamardashvili, eyebrows were raised a little bit, but there's also I think the conversations we had at the time were, the club know that we have a unique goalkeeper who's uniquely one of the best that's ever played the game, but also very, very rare for a goalkeeper in that he picks up injuries at the drop of a hat. He's an injury-prone goalkeeper. In all my years watching Liverpool, I've never known an injury-grown goalkeeper. I can't.
Who was good?
Who was good? Yeah, who was good? Yeah. And I can't think of the top of the world game where that's a thing. I know Manuel Neuer's had his injuries, but I wouldn't say he's throughout his career or Oblak.
I mean, Alisson doesn't go skiing that often, so he's not going to get
the
same reasons for injuries as Manuel Neuer. But I take your point.
I mean, the consolation is, and I hope it's a consolation, is that Mamardashvili wasn't just bought for the sake of it.
No.
And the glimpses we've seen of him have been really encouraging.
I think so too.
So it is what it is. I suppose we all knew it was coming. I just hope it's one of his... I'd trade now on 5, 6, 7, 8 gamers. I'd trade on that rather than it being something nightmarish like God forbid, an ACL.
Well, yeah.
We can't rule anything out at this moment.
No, unfortunately we can't. I'm assuming that maybe by the time this comes out, some of you will have had more indication. We might have heard a few whispers here and there. But obviously, Slot's next press conference is Friday morning. I'll be there. Someone will be asking, if not necessarily me, so we'll know by that point. But the point with Mamardashvili is really strong, is that he's a number one. Basically, whether or not he's playing back up, he is a number one. He was number one for Valencia for quite some time.
Yeah.
He's number one for his country. He is a good enough goalkeeper. If the worst happened and we had to have him in goal for weeks/months, I think he could do the job. So that's okay.
It's a fragile situation though, because he's one mistake away from people jumping on him, because this is how the world works. And with goalies, that confidence thing can play a really big factor. And I've seen, we've both seen keepers destroyed by a couple of high-profile errors, and the media and fan pile on, and they never recover from it. I don't want to tell.
No, but you're right.
But it is something I think we'll all be a bit nervy about for a while, and certainly wishing him well will be an important thing.
Yes. Now, in terms of injuries, the other injury, Hugo Ekitike, again, a bad ball into him. He stretches. He's already kind of run around for quite a considerable amount of time. And he felt something. Now, the word on him was a little bit more vague in terms of Slot was saying, like, he felt something, he felt he can continue, but you never know in the moment, and it might look different in the next morning. So even in those kind of words, it felt like he's got more of a chance. But in the world where he isn't available, we've literally just had an example of what can happen if we're having to play Isak for too long. as we saw at Selhurst Park. I don't think it suited him. And then if you look at Isak's contribution coming off the bench last night, again, I still don't think he's ready.
I thought, okay, let's start with Ekitike. I mean, we could see in the first half how important a player he's becoming for us. Mm-hmm. His pace to get away from his man created probably our best chance of the game. He should really have finished, but he didn't. He said afterwards that he had cramp and that he was fine. The manager was more cynical, wasn't he? He said that he all but said that's what Jeremy Frimpong said on the first day of the season, was out for 3.5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So if you ask me to bet, I'm not betting on him starting against Chelsea just based on the information we have now. I hope to God he has got a chance, but I'm not betting on it. But back to Isak. There's a lot of stats that he only touched the ball about 4 times when he came on last night. He didn't look like he got into the game at all. I was okay with his performance against Palace. Not really in the game in the first half, but then there was no service into him. Second half, I thought he was a threat. I thought he was building towards something. And it'd been interesting what reactions would have been to him had he slotted that one where he's nearly brought down.
Yes.
He does really quite well there. And he showed a couple of times, I think, does he head one over the bar? He's getting into good positions there, I thought. I thought that was a real taster of what's to come. Is he going to start then against Chelsea? Looks like we don't have a choice.
Yeah, and that feels like the most frustrating part of it is the fact that the ideal plan A, for getting him back to speed has been compromised already because of we're having to use him rather than maybe we wouldn't be using him in a similar way. And when you're a goal scorer, when you're a striker, those, like, taking those chances makes a massive difference between how the game feels and how the game goes. So as much as we can have much sympathy for him not being at his best in terms of the chance that perhaps you mentioned, or the one last night where he goes through and then he just he doesn't really hit it properly, it's almost like in the back of people's minds, it's like, well, that had gone in, it's a very different game. And also, if you're going to break a transfer record for strikers, because you want them to be able to be the one who does that one moment when you get one moment. And this is where the situation kind of muddies, because, like I say, people want to judge him by those standards that we expect him of, but he's not there yet.
This is the problem when you make a signing of that stature. There's an enormous pressure to hit the ground running. I mean, he's the biggest sort of striker move, I think, in world football since Haaland arrives on these shores to make his debut, or maybe Harry Kane's first game or so for Bayern Munich. Both of those players arrived, I think with 4 pre-seasons behind them, were able to start playing at their optimum and quickly confirm their status and go on from that point. He's not been allowed, through circumstance, Newcastle fans will be sitting here chuckling, I think, and he's not been able to present himself yet, and we won't actually know the day that is, that he is fully fit. You know, it could be in 3 games' time, until 8 games' time. In between them, people will make their own judgments as to when the moment is, and then go, well, why didn't he score then? He hasn't scored for 7 games, he's scored for 8 games. You know, that's what he's up against, and he's going to have to show himself some strength and character. He's going to have to be managed exceptionally well.
I think so too. And I mean, just on the Newcastle fans' point, Johan Wissa currently out injured, so I wouldn't get too giddy when you're trying to talk about Alexander Isak if I was you. But anyway,
and they're shit.
Let's concentrate on Liverpool, shall we?
I haven't forgiven them for letting Arsenal beat them with that last-minute goal. That destroyed.
Oh, come on! Right, they didn't let Arsenal do that.
Two set pieces. Soft shots. I didn't watch it. I'm just fuming about it.
No, I did watch it, and Arsenal were well good enough to win that football game. So I don't take any. Put it this way: Newcastle weren't doing it to spite Liverpool.
No,
they wanted to win that football game badly.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go and bring the focus back towards us. We mentioned Isak there. Let's talk about the other big money signing that we haven't mentioned so far, Florian Wirtz, who I think is already getting into the stage where, depending upon how you feel about him, dictates how you feel about how he does in each individual game. So I thought that there were lots of things last night that he was doing really well, but I was also having to fight fires on his behalf in a lot of my group chats of people who were telling me he was rubbish, he was too slow, he was shy, etc., etc., etc. Again, just like we were saying with Isak, he's going to need to have a bit of character about him to be able to ride through these things. My only real worry at the moment is that some of the things that I thought were a little bit off about him in the initial games are still there. Namely, he's losing a lot of the physical battles. And secondly, the timing of when to release the ball. It feels like he still wants it a little bit too long. Is this the kind of thing that you were hoping that maybe he would have started to change by now? Or again, are we still being a bit too premature with this?
Well, when we are being premature with it, I'm prepared to give him a long time. You know, I think we've talked about it before. So I've watched a lot of big Liverpool signings down the years and signings across the board. Did we talk about Rodri last time? And yeah, I think we did. How nobody even... He was on no one's radar for a year, and then suddenly within a couple of years he's the best player in the world and all thereabouts. So I've got a lot of patience with Florian Wirtz. I don't need it to happen the next game or the game after that. I think if we get to Christmas and we're still not seeing signs of a breakthrough, I'm going to be a bit worried. I think he was good second half against Palace. I thought with him and Dominic Szoboszlai ran the game, really. I thought in that phase, I thought he was creative. He got himself into a position where I think on another day he scores. And I think if he had bagged, I think some of the conversation changes around it, because people are very lazy in their analysis. Goals define how we think about footballers. Yeah, and I thought he showed some encouraging signs yesterday. It's very hard, you know, when the whole team performance sort of collapses around itself, or isn't even able to get going for the reasons we discussed. To go to one individual, I know it's obvious, you know, the ones you pay the money for, the ones you expect to be the game changers. Yes, you are. It is human nature to focus on those things, but I am seeing some extreme reactions. You know, I have groups as well where you go, come off it. I mean, it's like, what do you? So you think he's shit now? You think he's shit? So what should we do? Should we sell him in January? Is that what you're advocating? Florian Wirtz, the best young player in world football. What was he? 8 in the Ballon d'Or or 9, something like that. No, he was expensive and really good for a reason, because he's good, and there's a lot of evidence as why he's good. I mean, he's the bright hope of his national team. Do we have to talk about his pedigree to remind people that he's not actually shit? He may be playing below a level you want at the moment, but he's a good footballer. He
is a good footballer, and I think that a lot of times we have to resist the urge to
baby rage.
Yes. No, you're right, and I think you can look at it and say you're hoping for signs that he will get there, and you're almost kind of looking too deeply into every individual micro movement. So every kind of misplayed pass or everything that he tries that doesn't go, it becomes, oh gosh. Then you get into a situation where you're thinking, is it ever going to come? But you're right, there's been so many instances of players who've taken a lot of time to get to where they are, but then once they get there, they hit that level and it completely changes. And I would remind everybody, Florian Wirtz did not sign a 9 or 10 game contract. He signed a 5-year contract. And that should give him enough time to get to that place that we're wanting to get to. Okay, so speaking of getting to places we want to get to, let's talk about Stamford Bridge, because I know you didn't watch them, but I had an eye on Chelsea last night, and yes, they won. They threw a deflected goal. But no, they did not impress me. They still look like a team that are just a little bit shonky at the moment, a little bit unsure of themselves at the moment. And obviously, you mentioned the confidence in Liverpool. Liverpool probably are a little bit unsure of themselves as well. Can this be the game where it all comes back?
Well, are we two teams? Well, we're not in crisis, but we're two teams having some nervousness about our identities at the moment, I would say. It's a pressure game, this one. It's just before the international break. It would be a great game to win, and I don't really care how it came about. Any kind of shitty win would be absolutely fine. We haven't won on that ground for quite a few years, I don't think. Without wanting to tempt fate, I haven't liked the look of Chelsea since the beginning of the season. I didn't like the shape of the transfer business they did. I fancied them at the beginning of last season. I thought they'd done some good bits. I thought Neto and getting Sancho in online were good ideas at that time. They'd got Enzo Fernandez was bedding in, Caicedo was bedding in. I thought, yeah, they could be all right. And right through to about November they were. And then they fell off a cliff. So it's hard to say how it will go this time. I just don't know. I think they're always going to be a handful on their own ground. There's no doubt we're in for a big, big game. They will come at us, that's for sure. They will take the game to us. They're not going to do what Palace did. They're not going to low block us. And virtually so many sides have just bedded in behind the ball against us this season. And quite frankly, we've won 6 out of 7 league games. So we've dealt with that well, even if we've had to wait till late to do it. But Chelsea, they're going to come at us. That's how they're going to play. They're going to look to use the momentum and the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge to have a go at us. That's why I would have loved to be sure that Hugo Ekitike was fit and firing for that one. I think he would have been really, really important for it. At times this season where we've looked blunt, it's because we have lacked pace in attack for me. We haven't looked as good in transition. Obviously, we missed the early ball out from Trent. There's no doubt about that in getting out. I think we missed Luis Diaz's ball carrying. Mohamed Salah is slowing up. There's no doubt about that. So we're not getting pace off that flank. Cody doesn't want to go outside his man really and demonstrate pace. That's why Hugo Ekitike is vital. I kind of think, although people have been critical of Frimpong, and for good reason, I do think he can give us something though with his pace. For me, I would want, for the time being, a Frimpong and an Ekitike in the team just to give us that bit more pace going forward until Isak can get back into his stride at least.
No, that's an interesting point because you're right. Frimpong did again have a good and bad game, I think, in Turkey. I think there were definitely things that he was doing that other people weren't doing, like Van Dijk's outball to him was getting us up the pitch and he was consistently testing his man. It was just the final ball wasn't quite there. But again, that might be something that will come with reps once he understands how his forwards want it when and where his forwards want it. That will develop. So yeah, I'm also in favour of seeing him a little bit more as well. The interesting thing for me though, if you think back to the game last season, obviously Liverpool were very much on the beach at that point, having already clinched the league. But Chelsea's tactics were to kind of use Cole Palmer to drag one of our midfielders, normally Curtis Jones, out of the way to allow the others to come through. Obviously, Palmer's not going to be making it in this game. So, do you think that there is something similar that Maresca might have up his sleeve specifically for Liverpool, or alternatively, do you think Slot might have something specifically up his sleeve for Chelsea?
I think he was very intrigued by Chelsea last season. He made a big play of talking about how they deserved to beat us at Anfield. I didn't actually agree with him. I thought they played well, but Slot was over the top on that one. One thing that did work in that game is that Curtis Jones man-marked Cole Palmer at Anfield. At Anfield, yes. He marked him out of the game. So maybe they thought the antidote to that was to take Curtis Jones for a walk. And that's what they did in the return game. Having said that, I know they go 2 up and it finishes 2-1 in that game, doesn't it? And although we were semi on the beach, I did think we were unlucky to find ourselves 2-0 down in that game. And that's with a couple of people rested, lower motivation. Let's see what they're made of. They will feel that they're getting us at the right time. So I think they'll be more confident than us about it. A win's a win against Benfica, so they'll be going into it on the back of a Champions League win, thinking they're facing a fragile version of Liverpool. If they're shown the tapes of our last 2 games, they're going to be licking their lips in certain ways. So we're going to have to show some real mentality monster shit out there. I don't want to be catastrophise around it, but to go into the international break on the back of a 3rd successive defeat would be bad. And if we are to draw, we need to give some signs of encouragement in drawing. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I'd take a cheeky 2-2, but if it has to be something like that, I'd like a cheeky 2-2 with an Isak and Wirtz goal apiece and a couple of impressive performances.
There you go. I'd sign on that. I'd sign on the draw if those two were involved and heavily involved, because we've only just got about time to do the grinding my gears, but we've kind of covered it earlier on in the show, so we don't have to go too heavy. The concept of the 007, that's what really drives me insane.
The Wirtz thing?
Well, it's not just Wirtz, it's across football. It's become a thing where if a new signing has 0 goals and 0 assists in 7 games, then it becomes 007 and you see all these mock-up pictures of him as James Bond. The concept...
that really winds me. I want to start smashing the gaff. I'm sorry, I might have to leave.
The concept that we are
that.
really trying to definitively say a footballer is useless after 7 games. That there's become a term to say that this is what is important. No, it's not what's important. I just think that we all need to take a long, hard look at how we talk about football in general, and this is just one of the things.
By the way, something grinds my gears is the primacy, by the way, of the assist as a statistic. It is important. It's an interesting indicator, and some of the very best players in the world have big assist stats. But it isn't the same as a goal. A goal is a much more precious commodity in terms, like the greats who've got like 40 goals or whatever, 30 goals in a season are definitively great goal scorers. But assists, you are so much more at the mercy of somebody finishing off your work. It's just so much more. You've got, unless you're, so take a Florian Wirtz. Okay, I'd like to see Florian Wirtz score. He was a scorer in Germany, albeit not at a centre forwards rate. Park the assists. Let's look at everything else. Let's look at his pass completion rate, how many decent chances he's making. Let's look at the general arc of his play. I mean, maybe that's not good enough for people, but just going on this nominal statistic and creating this 007 construct is garbage.
It is. It's the data versus the eye test, and I think that there's room for both of them in football, and you can't exist on one alone. And my final point on this, assists. Go back and look at who got the assist for Mo Salah's goal against Man City in 2022. That technically counts as an assist, and it was literally a 5-yard square pass. So, these things aren't all created equal. We need to just remember that.
Didn't Cody get a couple of assists the other day? Who did Cody get a couple of assists against the other week? And actually, they were mental block on this one. But it was just like passing the ball 5 yards sideways. Yeah.
Another great one is Busquets got an assist for Lionel Messi. He scored. Basically, Busquets had the ball and he just basically took a step back. And Messi took the ball off him, ran around 3 Real Madrid players and put it in. One of his most famous Clasico goals. And Busquets technically gets the assist. But you know what? He did nothing.
And that's not the same. People go, some goals are cheap. Yes, but you can, at least with a cheap goal where it bounces off your ass and goes in, at least you got in the position.
You got to be there to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, we've got into old man rants, and we tend to do that every now and then. But then maybe that's why you love the show. Who knows? If you do love the show, thank you. We will be back at an unspecified time. So until then, we'll see you later.
Oh, I know what grinds my gears. People putting people who aren't called Rob and Mo on the Rob and Mo show. And you can keep filming this. That we're going to have a word with the higher ups about, aren't we, Mo?